I was still holding Grandma Rose's hand when Jake leaned close behind me and murmured, "Grab your bag. We're leaving. Act like everything's normal." At first, I thought he was teasing. His voice was so quiet, so calm. But then I looked at his face and saw something I had never witnessed in our 7 years of marriage. Genuine fear. Not the kind you pretend when a sudden noise startles you, or a scary movie jumps at you. This was deep, alert, calculating fear. The kind that chills your body before your mind even processes it. I blinked at him, completely baffled. "What?" "I'm out." He didn't answer. Just gave a faint shake of his head and a small, forced smile. Then he stepped back, his hand brushing mine so subtly that no one else would notice. It was our signal. The one we used when we needed to slip away from a conversation without making a scene. I had no clue why he was using it now. Around us, people laughed, ate cake, and clapped as Sierra delivered her dramatic speech about how none of this would have been possible without Dad's careful planning. Balloons floated overhead. Music drifted from a speaker near the patio. Grandma, draped in her favorite blue shawl, smiled quietly in her chair, like a queen surveying her court. I should have felt happy. I wanted to feel happy. But Jake's whisper echoed in my mind. "Act like nothing's wrong." I slowly stood and gave Grandma a gentle squeeze on the shoulder. "Bathroom?" I whispered with a small smile. She nodded, still clapping at something Sierra said. Jake and I weaved through the crowd casually. I forced myself to nod at people, smile, laugh when someone teased. "Heading off to sneak some wine, huh?" Jake chuckled. "You know us." We slipped inside through the sliding door. The second it clicked shut, Jake gripped my wrist. Not tightly, just enough to make sure I understood. We weren't stopping. "Jake, what's happening?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're frightening me." "Just trust me," he replied. "I'll explain in the car." I followed him to the front hallway, where we'd left our things. He handed me my purse and phone, his eyes scanning the room in quick, nervous glances. Then we stepped outside. The sun still shone, children ran across the lawn, and laughter floated from the backyard. Everything looked ordinary, but it didn't feel ordinary, not anymore. Jake unlocked the car with a beep, opened my door, and waited until I was seated before moving to the driver's side. He slid in, started the engine, and immediately locked all the doors. The click echoed sharply in my ears. He stayed still, eyes glued to the rearview mirror. Then slowly, he turned toward me and said words I will never forget. "Something's very, very wrong." My mouth went dry. "What are you talking about?" I whispered, heart hammering. "It's just a birthday party." "What's happening?" Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. He didn't show me the screen. "I'll explain in a minute," he said. "But right now you have to trust me. Don't panic. Just stay calm." That's when I noticed Sierra through the car window, standing alone by the back door. She wasn't waving, her smile gone. She just stared, like she knew we weren't supposed to leave. And that's when it hit me. Jake wasn't overreacting. Something was really, truly wrong. If you're as confused as I was in that moment, don't worry. Everything is about to unfold. Stay with me and make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what happens next. It all started with a phone call I almost ignored. I was folding laundry on a quiet Sunday afternoon when my phone buzzed on the counter. Seeing my dad's name made me hesitate. We hadn't spoken much over the last few years. Not because of a fight, but because every conversation made me feel smaller, like I didn't belong in his version of family. Curiosity won. I answered. "Hi, Dad." "Maya," he said, his voice unusually bright. "How are you, sweetheart?" I instantly went on guard. My father hardly ever called unless he needed something. "I'm fine. What's up?" I asked. He let out a soft chuckle. "I wanted to talk to you about something important. Your grandmother's birthday is coming up, her 85th. Can you believe it?" Of course I could. Grandma Rose had always been sharper than most people half her age. Still, I stayed quiet, waiting for the hidden agenda. "We're planning a surprise party for her," he said. "Big gathering, decorations, cake, the whole thing. Your sister's helping organize it, and we thought it'd be really nice if you came too." That gave me pause. Sierra and I hadn't been close since our teenage years. She always treated life like a competition, and I was the one she aimed to beat. Yet, I couldn't ignore Grandma's birthday. That woman had done more for me than both my parents put together. Of course, I said, surprising even myself. I'd love to be there. Wonderful, Dad replied. It'll mean the world to her. We hung up after he gave me the details, date, location, and that it would be at our old family home, the place I hadn't set foot in for nearly a decade. That fact made me hesitate, but I quickly brushed it off. Later that evening, when I told Jake, he looked pensive. Your dad invited you? He asked, eyebrow raised. Yes, I said. I know it's strange, but I can't miss Grandma Rose's 85th. She practically raised me. Jake nodded slowly, but didn't seem fully convinced. And Sierra's involved too. Why? He leaned back and exhaled. I don't know, it just feels too sudden, like they're trying too hard to make it perfect. I understood his concern. My dad and sister were never the warm, family dinner type. Still, Grandma Rose deserved a celebration. And maybe, just maybe, they were trying to mend things. People can change, right? Jake agreed to come with me, though it was clear he was more in it for support than excitement. He even booked a small hotel nearby, just in case we needed space after the party. I appreciated that. The week before the trip felt surreal. I kept imagining stepping back into that house, seeing my old bedroom, walking across the creaky porch where I used to sit with Grandma sipping lemonade. Each thought brought a mix of nostalgia and unease. On the day we left, Jake double-checked everything: car tires, GPS, phone chargers. He was always cautious, but today he seemed unusually focused. I chalked it up to him being overprotective. The 6-hour drive passed with music, snacks, and light conversation. Jake asked about my childhood, and I shared the good memories. How Grandma sneaked me cookies when Dad said no, or how we built blanket forts in the living room. We barely spoke of Sierra or Dad. Some memories are best left boxed away. When we finally arrived, it was like walking into a frozen memory. Same white shutters, same faded welcome mat, but everything seemed staged. The lawn was immaculately trimmed, balloons tied to every post, and a banner above the garage read, "Happy 85th Rose." My father met us with a wide smile and open arms. There she is, he said. My girl. Sierra appeared beside him, clipboard in hand, planting an air kiss on my cheek. We're so glad you made it, Maya. Really? Jake stood next to me, gripping my hand a little too tightly. He said nothing, but the unease was mutual. Something about all this felt off. As soon as we stepped inside, it hit me: not warmth, not comfort, not nostalgia. Just something strange. The living room appeared exactly as I remembered it. Too perfect, almost like something straight out of a catalog. The rug where I once sat coloring with Grandma was gone. The walls were freshly painted, pristine. Yet there was a subtle chill in the air, as if the house itself were holding its breath. Jake noticed it too. I could see it in the way his eyes swept across every corner, his fingers drumming impatiently on his leg. He went quiet, scanning, that instinctive part of him alert whenever something felt off. Looks nice, I murmured softly, glancing around. Feels staged, Jake muttered under his breath. Sierra floated through the house, greeting guests with that high-pitched tone she used when she wanted to seem extra cheerful. Dad was busy showing a few people around, pointing out framed photos and family heirlooms that were unfamiliar to me. Then, in the far corner by the window, I saw her. Grandma Rose. She sat in her favorite armchair, wrapped in her pale blue shawl. The one she always wore on chilly mornings. She smiled down at a little boy playing with a balloon at her feet. But something about her felt off. I moved slowly toward her, and knelt beside the chair. Hi, Grandma, I said softly. She looked up and smiled, but her eyes seemed tired, almost foggy. Maya, she whispered. You came. Of course, I replied, taking her hand gently. She squeezed back lightly, her grip weaker than I remembered. I studied her face. She had grown thinner, paler. Her cheeks had lost their usual warmth, and her eyelids drooped as though real rest had eluded her for days. Jake came over, placing a reassuring hand on my back. Hi, Grandma, he said warmly. Grandma blinked up at him. Oh, Jack, she said. I looked at Jake. His smile didn't change, but I could read his thoughts. Grandma never forgot his name. Sierra swooped in, cutting the moment short. She's been a bit sleepy lately, she said quickly. Doctor says it's just age. I didn't like her tone. Dismissive. Rushed. I stood and scanned the room again. Most of the guests were distant relatives or long-forgotten family friends. But scattered among them were unfamiliar faces, men in dress shirts and jackets, quietly standing, as if waiting for something. Who are those guys? I whispered to Jake. Was wondering the same, he replied. They're not mingling, haven't touched any food either. Before I could ask more, Dad appeared beside us with 2 glasses of punch. Enjoying yourselves? He asked with a broad grin. Jake took the glass but didn't sip. Everything looks polished, he said. Dad chuckled. Had to make it special. Not every day your mother turns 85. Then he looked at me. Glad you came, sweetheart. Your grandmother's been asking for you. I nodded slowly, eyes still on Grandma, now resting her head back, her eyes fluttering closed. Sierra clapped her hands. All right, everyone. Let's get ready for group photos outside. We want that golden light. People began moving toward the doors. Dad waved at us briefly and joined the crowd. Jake leaned in. I'm going to step outside for a minute. Need to check something near the driveway. Check what? I asked. He gave me a look that said, I'll explain later. I nodded. Be careful. He slipped away without drawing attention. I stayed beside Grandma, brushing a loose strand of hair from her forehead. She stirred but didn't open her eyes. I couldn't shake the unease in my gut. The decorations were flawless. The house immaculate. Everyone smiling. But none of it felt genuine. It felt staged. For the first time that day, I wondered if coming back had been a mistake. Jake returned about 10 minutes later, and something about him had shifted. His jaw was tight, his eyes sharp. The look he gets when he's piecing things together, when something doesn't fit. He walked straight to me as I helped Grandma sip water from a paper cup. You okay? I asked, watching him carefully. Yeah, he said, clipped. Can we talk in the hallway for a sec? I glanced at Grandma, nodding off again, then back at Jake. We stepped quietly into the hallway just past the kitchen. Everything felt still. The music from the backyard was muffled, dulled by the closed doors. Jake lowered his voice. I noticed wires coming out from under the porch, he said. Not just normal power cables. These were smaller, hidden like someone didn't want them seen. I frowned. What kind of wires? Could be audio, maybe video. He pointed to one that ran straight into the wall near the living room window. What would they be recording? Jake shook his head. I don't know yet. But that's not all. There are men stationed near the back fence, not guests. They're trying to blend in, but they're not doing anything, just standing there, watching. A chill ran down my spine. No uniforms, no badges, Jake continued. I overheard one of them talking about timing a drop. That's not party talk. I swallowed hard. Jake, what do you think is happening? He didn't answer immediately. He glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. I don't want to scare you, he said slowly, but I think something bigger is going on here. I also checked the downstairs bathroom's medicine cabinet. It's empty. No prescriptions, not even Grandma's. I froze. She takes heart medication, sleep pills, every day. Not anymore. Not anymore, Jake said grimly. Unless they're hiding them somewhere else. I looked toward the living room. Grandma's shawl was draped over the arm of her chair. She's not herself, I whispered. She called you Jack, hasn't made eye contact, barely awake. Jake nodded. It's like they're keeping her sedated long enough to pull something off. At that moment, Sierra's voice floated down the hallway. There you two are, she said cheerfully. Cake and gifts are next. I don't want you to miss it. Jake smiled politely. We'll be right there. As soon as she disappeared around the corner, he leaned in closer. I think your dad and sister are scheming something with Grandma's estate. Maybe even trying to prove she's mentally unfit. My head spun. But why now? He hesitated. Because all the legal power shifts when she turns 85. Maybe there's a clause in her trust? I asked, trying to make sense of it. I don't know yet, he admitted. I tried to steady my breathing. Jake, we can't just accuse them. We don't have proof. I'm working on it, he said. I've already photographed what I saw, but I need more time. Just act normal until we leave. Act normal. Those words hit me harder this time. I felt it too. This wasn't just a party. This was a setup. We re-entered the living room. Sierra was lighting the candles on a massive cake. Dad stood beside her, arm around her shoulder, smiling as though he'd won something. Grandma's head was tilted back, her eyes half closed. I moved closer and gently shook her arm. Grandma. She blinked slowly, turning toward me. Oh, hello, dear, she mumbled. She's tired, Sierra said quickly, stepping between us. We'll let her rest after cake. Jake whispered in my ear. We're leaving after this. I nodded automatically. The room erupted into a shaky chorus of happy birthday, but I couldn't join in. All I could do was watch Grandma struggle to lift her head, wondering how I hadn't seen this coming sooner. The cake had barely been cut when Jake touched my arm and gave me a subtle nod. It was time. He didn't say a word. I didn't need him to. I recognized the look on his face. The same calm, focused certainty he'd had when we had to leave a hotel in the middle of the night after spotting a security risk. I glanced at Grandma one last time. She slouched in her chair, eyes unfocused, while Sierra posed behind her for photos as if everything were perfect. I'll come back for her, I whispered. Jake didn't respond. He simply took my hand gently and guided me through the side hallway that curved toward the front of the house. We didn't rush. We didn't even walk fast. Jake made sure of that. Every step I took was controlled, deliberate. When we passed my dad, Jake gave a small smile and said, "Great cake." Dad clapped him on the shoulder. "Thanks for coming, son." That word, son, hit my ears like acid. We reached the front door without pausing. My pulse was hammering in my neck. Outside, the sun was lowering, casting a quiet, heavy stillness over everything. Our car sat exactly where we had left it, tucked in the far corner of the driveway. Once the house was behind us, Jake quickened his pace. We got to the car, and he unlocked it with a practiced swipe. "Get in," he murmured. I slid into the passenger seat, shutting the door behind me. Jake followed, locking every door with a single crisp click. The engine roared to life, and he eased out of the driveway slowly, as if we were simply heading for a casual drive. As we merged onto the main road, I finally let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Then Jake said something that made my stomach drop. They had sedatives in the kitchen drawer. I turned sharply to him. "What?" I found a small pill bottle hidden behind the silverware. No label, some crushed residue on the cap. It wasn't Grandma's usual meds. Different strength, stronger. My heart started pounding. "You're saying they've been drugging her?" Jake's eyes stayed on the road, but they flicked to the rearview mirror. "I think they've been keeping her barely conscious. Awake enough to seem present, but too out of it to speak up if anyone asked." I pressed my hand to my mouth. "Oh my God. There's more," he continued. "One of the guests, well, not really a guest." I checked his plate, untouched, but he had a folder hidden under his jacket. Paperwork peeking out, signatures, medical forms, looked forged. My mind reeled. "You think they're what? Trying to make Grandma seem incompetent?" Jake nodded. "That's the theory. If she's declared mentally unfit, they could take full control. Her estate, the house, her accounts, everything. And we were just sitting there, eating cake." "Not anymore," Jake said. He made a sharp turn off the main road. "Why are we turning?" I asked. I saw one of those men, the quiet type, step outside, talking on a phone as we left. "I don't want them following us." I glanced behind. Nothing but trees and open fields. Then I checked my phone. No signal. Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a small flash drive. I snapped photos of everything I could. The wires, the papers, the pill bottle. "If we take this to the police, it'll be enough to start an investigation." I stared at him. "You did all this in under an hour." He shrugged, eyes fixed on the road. "You know how I work." A fragile smile crept onto my face despite the tension. The kind you wear when things haven't completely fallen apart yet. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Why did you leave?" I froze. Jake glanced at it, then clenched his jaw. "We're going straight to the station," he said. I didn't argue. Suddenly, this wasn't just about protecting Grandma. It was about stopping something before it got worse. The road stretched endlessly ahead, silent and empty. Jake drove with purpose, steady and focused, eyes flicking to the mirrors every few seconds. I kept staring at the message on my phone. Why did you leave? No name, no context. Just those 5 words. I'm not replying, I said. Good, Jake said firmly. Whoever sent that wants to shake you, make you doubt leaving. Well, it worked, I muttered, hugging myself. Jake, what if we're wrong? What if we overreacted? Jake didn't flinch from the road. Then we'll let the police decide. I went silent. I wanted to believe it was all a misunderstanding. That the pills were harmless. The men just awkward family friends. That maybe my sister hadn't spent months plotting something sinister behind Grandma's back. But then Jake pulled the flash drive from his pocket and handed it to me. Open it, he said. See for yourself. I plugged it into my phone using a tiny adapter he always kept tucked in the glove compartment. The drive was packed with photos. Grainy, quick snapshots, but clear enough to see. The first few showed the wires Jake had mentioned, thin cables snaking beneath the porch, taped along the undersides of walls, hidden behind decorative panels. The next pictures revealed the medicine bottle stashed behind the cutlery drawer, crushed residue clinging inside the cap, no label in sight. But it was the last few shots that made my stomach churn. Papers forms a close-up of a document with a forged signature. My grandmother's name sprawled across it in sloppy handwriting that didn't even resemble hers. Jake pointed. That one's a declaration of incapacity. It's a legal form to start a conservatorship. I looked at him, horrified. You're saying they plan to take legal control of her? All her assets? Looks that way. I closed my eyes. But they wouldn't have done this today, right? Not with the party going on. Jake stayed silent. What? I pressed. He hesitated. There was a man by the basement door in medical scrubs. At first, I thought he was just helping out, until I saw him with a duffel bag. Could have been equipment, or worse. No, I said, shaking my head. Grandma's not sick enough for home care. She never mentioned needing a nurse. That's exactly the point, Jake said. They were counting on no one noticing. Sedate her, get the signatures, move her to a facility while she's too disoriented to fight it. I covered my mouth, horrified. We were the only ones who saw this, right? He nodded. That's why I got you out. I stared at the photos again. The timestamps showed they were taken just an hour ago. My hands started to shake. Jake reached for my phone, opened the contact list, and tapped a number I hadn't called in years. Who are you calling? I asked. He held the phone to his ear. County police. My heart leapt. Are you sure? Completely. The line rang 3 times before a woman answered. County Sheriff's Department. What's your emergency? Jake spoke clearly, calm and measured. I need to report suspected elder abuse and fraud. We have evidence. It's urgent. He gave our names, Grandma's name, the address, and a concise summary of what we found. The woman asked him to pull over if possible and wait for officers to meet us. Jake agreed. We parked at a small gas station off the highway, near a side fence where our car wouldn't be easily seen. I stared at the steering wheel, my mind racing. She always trusted them, I whispered. She thought Dad and Sierra had changed. Jake took my hand. They haven't. But you saw it. That's what matters. 20 minutes later, 2 police cars arrived. Jake handed over the flash drive and calmly explained everything. I spoke up, shaky but steady. The officers didn't dismiss us. They listened, took notes, made calls. Then one said, "We're heading to the property now. You 2 should come with us if you're ready." I looked at Jake. He nodded. And just like that, we were heading back to the house I had barely escaped. Only this time we weren't going alone. By the time we pulled into the driveway with the police escort behind us, the sun was sinking fast. The house that had once felt like a cheerful party scene now seemed eerily silent. The music was off. The guests had vanished. Only a handful of cars remained. My stomach twisted and Jake pulled up along the curb and gently squeezed my hand. Ready? He asked. I wasn't. Not really, but I gave a small nod anyway. The officers approached the front door. One rapped firmly, while the other positioned himself by the porch steps. Jake and I stayed just behind them, my heart hammering like it might burst from my chest. After a few tense moments, the door swung open. Sierra stood there, still in her party dress, her makeup slightly smeared. She offered a bright smile. Too bright. "Officers, is something the matter?" she asked. "We're responding to a report of suspected elder abuse and fraud," the taller officer explained. "Is your mother at home?" Sierra blinked, but her smile didn't falter. "I think you have the wrong house," she said. Jake stepped forward. "No, you don't." Her gaze shifted to me, then to him. "You called the police," she realized. Before I could answer, the second officer spoke. "Ma'am, we need to come inside now." Sierra hesitated, her hands shaking slightly, then stepped aside. "Of course. Please." Inside, the living room looked unchanged, except darker, shadows stretching across the floor. In the center, in her armchair, sat Grandma Rose. She appeared asleep or unconscious. The older officer moved closer and gently tapped her arm. "Ma'am." Her eyes fluttered open slowly, dazed. "Yes," she murmured. "Do you know where you are?" he asked softly. She glanced around. "At home." "And do you know what day it is?" he continued. She paused. "My birthday." Jake leaned closer to me. "She's still under something." The other officer radioed for paramedics, then turned to Sierra. "Where is her medication?" "In the bathroom," Sierra replied quickly. "Why? Can you show me?" Sierra hesitated again. "It's just in the drawer." "You're welcome to check." The officer nodded and went down the hallway. At that moment, my father entered the room. "What's going on here?" he demanded loudly. "Officers, I don't know what my daughter has told you, but this is a misunderstanding." Jake stepped forward. "Then you won't mind explaining the hidden surveillance cameras, the sedatives, and the forged documents I found in the house." My father's face drained of color. "Excuse me," he stammered. Jake held up his phone, showing one of the photos. "This is your signature on a legal declaration claiming Grandma Rose is mentally unfit. Filed without her knowledge." The lead officer examined it, then addressed my father. "Sir, you'll need to come with us." "You too, ma'am," he added to Sierra. Her voice cracked. "We were only trying to protect her. She's declining. We plan to move her into care. She needs it." "No, I don't," Grandma Rose interrupted, her voice stronger than before. Everyone turned to her. Slowly but with determination, she sat upright in the chair, blinking against the light. "I am not confused. I am not crazy. And I never asked to be locked in this chair all day while you plotted to take my house." Tears stung my eyes. "Grandma," I whispered. She looked straight at me. "You came back for me." Jake knelt beside her. "We're going to make sure you're safe. You have my word." Moments later, paramedics arrived, checking her vitals while the officers escorted Sierra and my father outside. Neither spoke. I stood in the doorway, watching them leave. No shouting, no excuses, only silence. Jake wrapped his arm around me. "They'll face charges. The documents, the meds, everything. There's more than enough evidence." I nodded, still watching the police cars pull away. That night, Grandma was taken to the hospital for observation. I rode with her in the ambulance. She held my hand the whole way, not letting go until the nurse tucked her into bed. "I thought I was alone," she whispered. "You never were," I said softly. "Not for a second." Back at the hotel, Jake and I sat quietly on the bed. No TV, no music, just stillness. "You did well," he said at last. "So did you," I replied. And for the first time in years, I felt not just relief, but peace.